diversity is a code word for white genocide. And those who claim an anti-racist position actually have a bigoted anti-white agenda.
Africa for the Africans, Asia for the Asians, white countries for everybody.
Children from white families in Birmingham are set to become a minority group for the first time when this year's census is collected in March.
Now, all this week, BBC London is looking at the changing face of London and what it means for the capital.
Minorities now seem to be surpassing white folks in births. And the forecast is that white folks are on track to becoming, and I hate to say this, the minority in America.
That I term to be genocide. And I'm backed up again by the United Nations definition on genocide, which quite specifically says, in the present convention, genocide means any of the acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethical, racial or religious group, and deliberately inflicting on that group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. To be genocide. Because they have been driven out. They have lost their right to exist as a culture and a race in their own country. Genocide.
If multiculturalism is something people really want, then why do we have white flight?
I would like to make a point to Mr. Murray, was that the people of Europe have the right to protect their identity and that their politicians should respect that right. And I would like to ask you why you feel that the presence of 1 or 2 or 1,000 people with a different identity within a society threatens the identity of the people who were in the society originally. Whether you believe that is a legitimate concern or a primal fear, that's my question.
The gentleman here said, why are you threatened by 1 or 2 people? I'm not threatened by 1 or 2 people. Nobody is threatened by 1 or 2 people. The figures I gave you showed we're not talking about 1 or 2 people. The figure I gave you at the very beginning was that people who identify as white British citizens are now a minority in their capital cities. So we're not talking about 1 or 2 people, and it is very disingenuous to pretend that I was.
They say you shouldn't judge people based on the colour of their skin. So why then, at the same time, do they blame white people for all the evil things in the world?
Most of the countries of the Third World were exploited from us. So now we cannot say that we don't accept them because most of their riches and their wealth were taken from us.
Douglas Murray, your response particularly to that challenge to you.
You say colonialism. I'd like to ask you a question. How long do former colonial countries have to be punished for then? How long do we have to have our identity erased for? Is there any end limit to it in your eyes, or is it only at the point of complete negation? And finally, why is it that it's only European former colonialist countries? One of the largest and most significant and longest colonial powers in history was the Turkish Empire. Do we do this to Turkey? Do we say to Turkey, you must have your identity erased as well as punishment for the past? Almost every single people in the world at some point has done something historically they could be punished for. But why, I wonder, is it that it is Europeans that we are always being heard, being offered that choice?
Douglas Murray, thank you. Before we go to Ms. Faridis,
Anti-racist is a code word for anti-white.